Ever wondered what makes a military leader truly terrifying? Could one person really shape the course of history through sheer brutality? Throughout the centuries, certain commanders have left blood-soaked footprints across the pages of history, their names spoken in hushed tones even today. Number 7. Attila the Hun, 406 to 453 CE. They called him the Scourge of God. Imagine being so feared that people believed you were sent as divine punishment. That was Attila, leader of the Hunnic Empire, whose very name made the mighty Roman Empire tremble, standing just 5 feet 6 inches with a broad chest and fierce eyes. His physical appearance was unremarkable compared to the terror he inspired. Attila united nomadic Hun tribes into a devastating fighting force that terrorized both Eastern and Western Roman empires. His warriors were masters of mounted archery, capable of firing arrows with deadly accuracy while riding at full gallop. This mobile fighting style was something European armies had never encountered, giving the Huns a critical advantage in battle. The Hunnic invasion techniques were particularly brutal. They would descend on villages without warning, giving residents no time to flee. One Roman chronicler described their attacks. They slaughter all, even the old men and babies, without mercy. Cities would sometimes surrender immediately upon hearing the Huns were approaching, hoping to be spared the worst of their wrath. In 447 CE, Attila's forces demolished over 70 cities in the Eastern Roman Empire, leaving scorched earth and mountains of corpses. His campaign against the Western Roman Empire nearly reached Paris before being turned back at the Battle of the Catalonian Plains in 451 CE, one of the rare occasions his forces didn't emerge victorious. Despite his reputation for brutality, Attila was also a shrewd diplomat who understood when to negotiate. He extracted enormous tribute payments from the Romans, approximately 2,100 pounds of gold annually, essentially turning the empire into his personal ATM. Still, his diplomatic envoys always carried the same implicit threat: pay up or face annihilation. Attila died unexpectedly in 453 CE on his wedding night, choking on his own blood from a nosebleed after heavy drinking. The Hunnic Empire quickly crumbled without his leadership, proving how central his personality was to their success. Though his empire didn't survive him, his reputation as one of history's most feared warriors remains intact even 1,500 years later. Number 6. Timur, Tamerlane, 1336 to 1405. Ever seen a pyramid made of human skulls? Timur built them as monuments to his conquests. This Central Asian warlord claimed to be a descendant of Genghis Khan. He wasn't, and aimed to restore the Mongol Empire to its former glory. What he lacked in legitimate Mongol heritage, he made up for with extraordinary brutality. Born into the Turkic Barlas tribe in modern-day Uzbekistan, Timur rose from humble beginnings to create an empire stretching from Delhi to Damascus. His name means iron in his native tongue, which proved fitting for his iron-fisted rule. Despite being partially crippled on his right side from battle injuries, earning him the nickname Timur the Lame or Tamerlane, he personally led his armies across thousands of miles. The death toll from Timur's campaigns is staggering. His conquest of Delhi in 1398 reportedly left 100,000 prisoners executed in a single day. When the citizens of Isfahan in Persia revolted against his rule, his response was to order that every soldier bring him 2 human heads. The result was a collection of 70,000 skulls arranged in towers and pyramids around the city, a grim warning to anyone considering resistance. Psychological warfare was Timur's specialty. Before attacking Baghdad, he had his men stack their helmets in massive piles outside the city walls, making his army appear larger than it was. When he captured the Ottoman Sultan Bayezid I, Timur allegedly kept him in a cage like an animal, using him as a footstool when mounting his horse. Despite his cruelty in battle, Timur was also a patron of arts and architecture. He transformed his capital Samarkand into one of the most splendid cities in the world, filling it with magnificent buildings using craftsmen captured from conquered lands. The stunning blue domes of Samarkand's buildings remain architectural marvels today. When Russian archaeologists opened Timur's tomb in 1941, despite warnings inscribed on the tomb that whoever disturbs the grave will unleash an invader more terrible than I, they found an inscription inside reading, "When I rise from the dead, the world shall tremble." Coincidentally, or not depending on your belief in curses, Germany invaded the Soviet Union 2 days later. Timur's empire didn't long outlast his death, but his reputation for combining military brilliance with unprecedented cruelty has endured. His campaigns caused the deaths of approximately 17 million people, about 5% of the world's population at that time, making him one of history's deadliest conquerors. Number 5. Genghis Khan, 1162 to 1227. How does someone born in tribal poverty end up controlling the largest contiguous land empire in history? Genghis Khan, born Temujin, started life as an outcast from a minor Mongol clan, abandoned and left to die on the harsh steppes. By the time of his death, he ruled an empire spanning from Korea to Eastern Europe. The statistics of Genghis Khan's conquests defy belief. His armies may have killed as many as 40 million people, up to 11% of the world's population at that time. Entire cities were obliterated so completely that contemporary chroniclers wrote, "Where Mongols had passed, no dogs or cats remained alive." When his forces conquered the Khwarezmian Empire after its Shah insulted Mongol envoys, Genghis responded with a campaign of total annihilation that may have killed 90% of the region's population. The Mongol method of warfare revolutionized combat. Their light cavalry could travel up to 100 miles per day, covering distances that other armies of the era considered impossible. They used psychological warfare masterfully, often sending agents ahead to spread terrifying rumors. Many cities surrendered without a fight, hoping for mercy that rarely came. When cities did resist, the consequences were apocalyptic. After the siege of Ergench, Mongol soldiers were each assigned 24 residents to execute personally. At Nishapur, Genghis ordered the death of every person and animal, with heads stacked in separate piles for men, women, and children. Following the fall of Balkh, survivors were forced to return to their destroyed city, only to be massacred when Mongol forces returned. Yet, alongside this brutality was a remarkable innovation. The Mongol Empire created the first international postal system, promoted religious tolerance throughout its territories, and established secure trade routes that connected East and West. Genghis himself couldn't read or write, but he created a meritocratic system that valued competence over birth status, revolutionary for its time. Perhaps most astonishing is Genghis Khan's genetic legacy. A 2003 genetic study suggested that approximately 16 million men living today, about 0.5% of the world's male population, carry a genetic signature indicating descent from Genghis Khan. This stems from his and his descendants' practice of claiming thousands of women from conquered territories. When Genghis died in 1227, reportedly, after falling from a horse, his body was carried back to Mongolia for burial. According to legend, anyone who encountered the funeral procession was killed to keep the location of his tomb secret. Despite centuries of searching, his final resting place remains undiscovered, A last mystery from history's most successful conqueror. Number 4. Vlad the Impaler, 1428 to 1477. Would you drink your morning coffee surrounded by thousands of impaled bodies? Vlad III of Wallachia did exactly that. Better known as Vlad the Impaler or Dracula, meaning son of the dragon, this Romanian prince turned brutality into an art form so terrifying he inspired the most famous vampire tale ever written. Born to nobility as the second son of Vlad II Dracul, young Vlad spent his formative years as a political hostage of the Ottoman Empire. This experience, watching his captors administer brutal punishments, seems to have shaped his later approach to governance and warfare. When he finally gained power, Vlad became obsessed with punishing anyone he considered disloyal or immoral, from political opponents to lazy noblemen. His preferred method of execution gives us his nickname, impalement. This agonizing death involved forcing victims onto sharpened wooden stakes, carefully inserted to avoid vital organs, so death would come slowly, sometimes taking days. Vlad refined this technique to maximize suffering, using rounded stakes and oils to prevent victims from dying too quickly from blood loss. In his most infamous display, Vlad impaled 20,000 Ottoman prisoners outside the city of Targovist in 1462. When Sultan Mehmed II, the conqueror of Constantinople, arrived with his army, he reportedly turned back in horror at the Forest of the Impaled. Contemporary accounts described Mehmed saying, "I cannot take the land of a man who does such terrible things." Beyond impalement, Vlad's cruelty knew few bounds. He allegedly nailed Turkish envoys' turbans to their heads when they refused to remove them in his presence. He was said to have dipped bread in the blood of his victims and eaten it while they died. At a banquet for beggars and the poor, he reportedly had the building locked and burned to the ground, claiming he was freeing them from the misery of this world. Yet, to Romanians, Vlad remains a complicated figure, even something of a folk hero. His brutal methods were directed largely at corrupt boyars, noblemen, foreign invaders, and criminals. Contemporary Romanian accounts praise his strict justice system and effectiveness against Ottoman expansion. Even today, some Romanians view him as a harsh but necessary leader who protected their homeland during dangerous times. Vlad's reputation inspired Irish author Bram Stoker to name his vampire Count Dracula in his 1897 novel, forever linking the historical figure with supernatural horror. While Stoker borrowed little from Vlad's actual life beyond the name and location, the association with blood and terror was fitting for a man who turned brutality into state policy. Vlad died in battle in 1477, fighting against Ottoman forces. According to legend, his head was sent to Constantinople, where the Sultan displayed it on a spike, a grimly ironic end for history's most notorious impaler. Number 3. Ivan the Terrible, 1530 to 1584. Can you imagine skinning people alive as entertainment during dinner parties? Ivan IV Vasilievich did. Russia's first Tsar, known to history as Ivan the Terrible, earned his fearsome nickname through decades of increasingly paranoid and sadistic behavior. His 37-year reign transformed Russia into a major European power, but at a horrific human cost. Ivan's childhood reads like a psychological case study in how to create a monster. Orphaned at age 8, he watched as boyar nobles fought for power, treating him with contempt and even allowing his caregivers to starve to death. By age 13, he ordered his first execution, having a boyar thrown to hunting dogs. At his coronation as the first Russian Tsar at age 16, he already displayed the volatile temperament that would define his rule. The early years of Ivan's reign showed promise. He reformed Russia's legal code, created Russia's first standing army, the Streltsy, and expanded Russian territory dramatically. He also married his beloved Anastasia Romanovna, whose calming influence temporarily checked his worst impulses. Then came the turning point, Anastasia's death in 1560, which Ivan believed was murder by poisoning. His grief transformed into paranoia and rage. He created the Oprichniki, essentially Russia's first secret police, 6,000 black-clad horsemen who rode with dog heads and brooms attached to their saddles, symbolizing their mission to hunt traitors and sweep them away. Dressed like sinister monks, these men answered only to Ivan and carried out increasingly sadistic punishments. The Oprichniki atrocities defy modern comprehension. Victims were boiled alive in large pots, impaled, flayed, or roasted on spits. Ivan personally directed many tortures, sometimes forcing relatives to watch their family members' agony. During the Novgorod massacre of 1570, when Ivan suspected the city of treason, as many as 60,000 people were tortured and killed over 5 weeks. Survivors described the Volkhov River clogged with bodies. Perhaps the most chilling aspect of Ivan's cruelty was how he mixed it with religious devotion. He would spend hours in prayer, then attend tortures, then return to church to beg forgiveness. He even had the names of his thousands of victims sent to monasteries across Russia, paying for prayers for their souls he had personally dispatched. Ivan's mental instability reached its tragic climax in 1581 when, in a fit of rage, he struck his pregnant daughter-in-law, causing a miscarriage, then fatally wounded his son and heir, Ivan Ivanovich, with his staff. Holding his dying son, the Tsar reportedly descended into inconsolable grief, another dramatic swing in his perpetually unstable emotional state. When Ivan died of a stroke while playing chess in 1584, he left a country devastated by his reign of terror. The population of Moscow had halved. Vast territories lay abandoned. Russia would soon enter the time of troubles, a period of famine and chaos directly attributable to the destructive legacy of its first Tsar. Yet Ivan remains a complex figure in Russian history, a brilliant, tormented ruler whose cruelty was matched only by his effectiveness in creating the foundations of the Russian state. Number 2, Adolf Hitler, 1889 to 1945. How does a failed art student become history's most reviled figure? Adolf Hitler's rise from obscure Austrian drifter to dictator of Germany represents perhaps the most catastrophic individual trajectory in human history. As leader of Nazi Germany from 1933 to 1945, his policies led directly to World War II and the Holocaust, events that claimed over 75 million lives. Hitler's early life gave few hints of his future infamy. Born in Austria-Hungary, he struggled as an artist in Vienna, living in homeless shelters before finding purpose during World War I, where he served as a message runner on the Western Front. The German defeat in 1918 radicalized him. He joined the small German Workers' Party, quickly taking control and renaming it the National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazis. Hitler's extraordinary oratorical skills helped him rise to prominence during Germany's economic crisis, playing on wounded national pride after the humiliating Treaty of Versailles and promising economic revival. Hitler offered simple explanations and enemies to blame, primarily Jews, communists, and the Democratic November criminals who had surrendered in 1918. After gaining power legally in 1933, Hitler quickly established a totalitarian regime. The Reichstag fire provided pretext for emergency powers. Political opponents were imprisoned in a rapidly expanding system of concentration camps. Books burned, Free press disappeared. Within a year, Hitler had assumed absolute power as Führer. Hitler's military leadership initially brought spectacular successes. Germany remilitarized, annexed Austria, dismembered Czechoslovakia, and conquered Poland, triggering World War II. By summer 1940, Nazi forces had stunned the world by defeating France in just 6 weeks. A victory that eluded Germany throughout the previous World War. Hitler seemed a military genius. Behind the battlefield triumphs lay unprecedented atrocity: the Holocaust, the systematic murder of 6 million Jews and millions of others deemed undesirable remains, history's most thoroughly documented genocide. Under Hitler's direct orders, death camps like Auschwitz-Birkenau used industrial methods to commit mass murder with assembly line efficiency. Victims included Roma, disabled people, Soviet prisoners of war, Polish civilians, homosexuals, and political opponents. Hitler's military strategy grew increasingly erratic as the war progressed. The invasion of the Soviet Union in 1941, Operation Barbarossa, resulted in the largest military confrontation in history. His refusal to allow tactical retreats, insistence on no-surrender policies, and intervention in military decisions against the advice of his generals contributed to devastating defeats. As Allied bombs fell on German cities, Hitler retreated to the Führer bunker beneath Berlin. There, increasingly divorced from reality, he moved non-existent armies on maps and ranted about betrayal. In April 1945, with Soviet forces just blocks away, Hitler married his longtime companion, Eva Braun, before they both committed suicide. Hitler's 12-year Reich, promised to last 1,000 years, left Germany divided, occupied, and in ruins. His quest for German racial dominance resulted instead in Soviet control of Eastern Europe for decades. The Holocaust forever changed Jewish history and human understanding of evil. World War II's 75 million dead make Hitler quantitatively the most destructive military leader in history, all orchestrated by a man who, in another timeline, might have remained an obscure painter. Number 1, Genghis Khan, 1162 to 1227. Can a single man fundamentally reshape the genetic makeup of humanity? When Mongol warriors under Genghis Khan swept across Asia and into Europe in the 13th century, they left such an overwhelming impact on human history that modern genetic studies reveal his DNA signature in approximately 0.5% of the global male population. That means roughly 16 million men alive today likely descend from this one extraordinary conqueror. Born Temujin to a minor Mongol chief, his early life was marked by extreme hardship. After his father was poisoned by rival tribesmen, his family was abandoned on the harsh steppes to die. Surviving through hunting and foraging, the young boy learned brutal lessons about power and loyalty. By his late teens, Temujin began the remarkable process of unifying the perpetually warring Mongol tribes, sometimes through alliance, often through conquest. In 1206, a council of Mongol chiefs declared him Genghis Khan, usually translated as universal ruler or oceanic ruler. The once fragmented tribes became a disciplined military machine unlike anything the medieval world had seen. While European knights specialized in individual combat, Mongol warriors executed complex battlefield maneuvers with precision that wouldn't be seen again until modern mechanized warfare. The scale and speed of Mongol conquests remain astonishing. Within 20 years, Genghis Khan's empire stretched from the Pacific Ocean to the Caspian Sea. His warriors, never numbering more than 100,000, defeated armies many times their size through superior mobility, discipline, and psychological warfare. Their reputation for absolute brutality against those who resisted meant many cities surrendered without fighting. The human cost of these conquests defies comprehension. When Mongol forces attacked the Khwarezmian Empire in modern Iran, Central Asia, after its Shah executed Mongol envoys, Genghis Khan's vengeance was apocalyptic. Entire cities were systematically exterminated. Contemporary accounts describe mountains of bones and fat from victims collected to make soap. Historians estimate the Iranian plateau's population didn't recover to pre-Mongol levels until the 20th century, nearly 700 years later. Yet, alongside this devastation, Genghis established commercial and cultural connections that transformed Eurasia. Under Pax Mongolica, Mongol peace, trade routes became safer than ever before. The Mongols adopted and spread technologies from conquered peoples. Religious tolerance was official policy throughout the empire, with tax exemptions for religious leaders of all faiths. Genghis himself couldn't read, yet he created history's largest contiguous land empire and administrative systems that lasted centuries. Perhaps most remarkable was the Mongol meritocratic system. Unlike contemporary societies built on hereditary privilege, Genghis promoted based on ability rather than birth or wealth. A shepherd's son could rise to general if he proved capable. Women in the Mongol Empire enjoyed higher status than in neighboring civilizations, managing affairs, while men campaigned and often advising on matters of state. The Mongols' deadly effectiveness stemmed partly from adaptability. They studied enemy techniques, incorporated foreign engineers for siege warfare, and modified their tactics based on battlefield experience, while European armies might train for specific terrain. Mongol warriors fought effectively in mountains, forests, and open plains across vastly different climates. When Genghis Khan died in 1227, reportedly after falling from his horse, his empire stretched 12 million square miles. His final resting place remains unknown. According to legend, the funeral escort killed anyone they encountered. Then the slaves who dug the grave were executed. And finally, the soldiers who killed the slaves were themselves killed to keep the location secret. Beyond his military conquests, Genghis Khan's biological legacy is unprecedented. Scientists theorize that his reproductive impact resulted from systematic rape during conquests, and the subsequent reproductive advantages his descendants enjoyed through high status across a vast empire. One study suggests that 1 in 200 men worldwide carry his chromosome pattern. The Mongol conquests under Genghis Khan redrew the map of Asia and Europe, collapsed ancient empires, and massively redistributed global population. Historians estimate that Mongol campaigns may have reduced the world's population by as much as 11%, the largest demographic impact of any conquest in human history. Was this the price of creating the first truly globalized political system? What kind of world might exist today if a young boy named Temujin hadn't survived against all odds on the Mongolian steppes all those centuries ago?